Okay, I decided to do a real quick one since I have free time on my hands at the current moment, which doesn't mean anything to you guys, but still, nonetheless. By the title, you will of course know that this is Darth Ruin. Now, the thing about Darth Ruin that many people have to understand is that hardly anything is known about him. Hardly any material is up about him, for him, talks about, mentions anything. He is one of the most underrated. Well, I'll say why he's underrated, but he's also one of the most underdeveloped, under talked about, under everything Dark Lord of the Sith, and we're supposed to believe also. He is one of the, he's, similar to Exar Kun, kind of one of the reasons why the Sith didn't fade into obscurity and history. Now, the thing about Ruin that interests me, well, okay, I should summarize his life, although it's going to be a lot simpler, a lot shorter. This whole video in general is going to be shorter. But his life story is this. Originally, he's an Umbaran, and if you don't know, Umbarans are weird, human-looking people who just have weird, dark attributes about them, personality-wise. They're just, from what I get, unpleasant somewhat to be around. They give off dark vibes. They usually are not friendly to people they don't know, outsiders, strangers, things of that nature, so it makes them very reclusive seeming, or at least that's my impression. Maybe someone could explain better exactly what an Umbaran is. But Ruin's an Umbaran, and that's that should have been a warning sign to the Order right there that an Umbaran is a Jedi, but let's keep on track here. Saying that to myself. So, originally his name was, it sounds really dumb, like Phanius. Like, honestly, unless it's pronounced Phanias. If it's pronounced Phanias, that's a lot better, but still, it looks like it's pronounced Phanius. And if his name's Phanius, it opens up the doorway for a slew of reasons why he decided, oh, that name needs to go. But I digress. Ruin was he apparently ascended to the rank of Master. He became a Jedi Master of the Order. This is the time when the Jedi this is after the Old Republic thing. Vitiate is gone somehow. They haven't exactly worked out how he was defeated ultimately. With how things are going with Disney, I don't know if they'll ever explain how that happened, which just leaves this big open crevice in the canon, Legends canon, but oh well. I'd rather have that than have Disney come in and act like they know shit. Again, I digress. But this is after the old Sith Wars, which comprise of the Great Sith War, Mandalorian Wars, Jedi Civil War, and both Great Galactic Wars, as well as the first Purge of the Jedi. Now, again, Phanias, I'm going to use that name because it sounds a lot better, ascended to rank of Jedi Master, and apparently, according to Wikipedia, because, again, there's not a lot of material on him, so I'm kind of just going off of his Wikipedia page, he was intelligent, charismatic, and a renegade. Qui-Gon Jinn area here. But apparently his philosophy and tonnage disturbed many Jedi. Moral relativism, that was butchered, and solipsism. Solipsism being this idea that anything outside your head doesn't exist. You can't really know anything anywhere exists except for what you're thinking. It's a very dreary prospect, so it's very introverted too. It's a very introverted philosophy, which I think goes well, even for a character we barely know anything about. The thing about Phineas, he apparently just up and left. He just left, according to Wikipedia, to pursue prohibited teachings, becoming one of the first that would eventually become known as Lost 20 Jedi, who over time they are of some renown, some importance. They are of higher rank because they're not going to devote a freaking bust for you if you were just some lowly knight and decide, oh, I'm going to leave because this doesn't work for me. It's a broken thing about the Jedi where it's like, oh, if you leave the order, you have the chance of falling, but yet they let people leave all the time. It doesn't make sense to me. Unless, of course, you're a kid, then you're going to be forced to go to the Agri Corps, but I digress. So, Phineas, my apologies for the pause there, leaves the order and pursues what else can it be but Sith teachings across the galaxy. Well, dark side type teachings that perhaps his whole life were repressed. He was told not to go near, told not to, touch. Now that he is a master, now that he has ascended to the highest rank he could possibly really, hopefully attain in the order, maybe it finally is proven to him in some weird fashion. Even though he's put in the work for it, he's put in the work, you have to be of some renown to become a master. You have to put in some work. And he just decided, oh, I've finally done it, I've become a master, it's still not working for me, I guess I'm gonna leave. They put an honor for him, because again, he's one of the Lost 20. So he must have been wanted amongst their ranks, at the very least, for them to go through the trouble of honoring his loss. So there's not a lot about him, so there's only conjecture really what he could have possibly ever done to get him such desire amongst the other Jedi to say, hey, even though you're leaving, we're going to honor you and stuff like that. But anyway, secretly unites Sith clans. I have an issue with Wikipedia's use of wordage again with clans. I've never heard of Sith breaking into clans. I've heard of Mandalorian clans. I've heard of other species having clans. I haven't heard of clans in regards to who's following what radical miniature dictator that day. But whatever. It describes them as gathering clans together, left over from the old Sith Wars, or Emperor Vitiat's Sith Empire. That didn't used to be there. Okay, first of all, again, I'm getting into rant territory here, and there's a difference between when I'm rambling and when I'm ranting. Ranting is when I genuinely do not like something, and I'm going to make a video soon about why the Old Republic pisses me off as a story, as a thing that exists. But in regards to this situation, Ruin has really, really little claim to fame anywhere in the lore. And one of the claims to fame, as minor as it may be to some people, was that he united a bunch of little clans, quote unquote, across the galaxy together and formed the new Sith Empire, the new Sith Order, made himself a new emperor, and essentially created an empire that was probably the greatest empire of that time. The greatest Sith Empire so far. But then BioWare made the Old Republic, and we were given all this exposition about how this is the greatest war and the greatest conflict, and no, it's not. It's not. It's outclassed by several wars later on, but the creative team knew this. They knew that the Clone Wars has been officially declared like the worst war in galactic history. Maybe the Civil War beat it by a little, but I'm still thinking the Clone Wars was the worst off. Then we have the Yuuzhan Vong. Again, I'll talk about why the Yuuzhan Vong pissed me off, but again, for canon's sakes, let's just say Yuuzhan Vong War was officially the worst. They knew this. They obviously knew stuff about Tales of the Jedi. They could easily find out the Yuuzhan Vong happened, they were a thing, and that they, what was the death toll? 300 trillion people? I mean, okay, I doubt over 300 trillion people died in your war that lasted such and such years. Yes, your war lasted several decades. I get that. But they don't ever mention calculated, exact, or estimated death tolls. It's just kind of like the war began, it happened, it was a thing, it ended, game, second war begins, and I've seen the videos, it really does not seem like that big a war, or that big a conflict is going on. It seems like several kind of major conflicts are accumulating together to make it come off like a war, when really it seems like more of a overblown scuffle, but I am beginning to rant. So essentially what I was trying to say there is that Vitia and the Old Republic essentially took away one little claim to fame Ruin had, which was uniting a bunch of little factions across the galaxy. But now we get to the notion that, oh, he just united a bunch of Vitia's leftovers together that were planted across the galaxy and said, hey, now I'm your new Emperor, I'm your new Sith Lord. Whatever. It's fine, but I have issues. Isn't that an understatement? Anyway. And then he forms a new Sith Empire. Interesting name. I'd like to know what the Ministry of the new Sith Empire is that deals with all sorts of other, like the Ministry of Communications, Ministry of Food and Health, the new Sith Imperial Ministry. It's funny that you want your empire to be narratively so different from the other ones, and in universe so different from the other ones, you just tack on the word new before Sith Empire, and somehow that makes it a whole new designate, kind of like, the new kingdom and the new empire for like Egypt, Middle Kingdom, Ancient Kingdom, stuff like that. I think maybe that's what they're going for, although I think narratively it was just to say, that's the old empire, this is the new empire, deal with it, I accept it, it's fine. So, new Sith Empire, new Sith Order, new Sith Emperor. He begins the Fourth Great Schism, not multiple. The schisms are things throughout the Jedi Order's history, the First Order, where decent amount of Jedi left the Order to form their own group, usually in direct opposition to the Order. The first one was the Legions of Leto, led by Zendor and Arden Lin. I'll talk about that at some point. The second one was the most important one because it led to the Dark Jedi being exiled into the Outer Rim, the Unknown Regions, where they found Korriban, and then the Sith were founded. I don't know why they were exiled, where in the First Great Schism, basically everyone was killed. I don't know if I don't even know what idea it was to say, hey, all these people who obviously want us dead and want to conquer everything, let's just exile them. They can't ever come back, and this can't ever come back to bite us in the ass. And it does multiple times throughout history. But that was the Second Great Schism. The Third Great Schism is one that baffles me because it's like it's glossed over. Again, it's a glossed over event. Barely anything's touched upon it. And again, I'm not going to go through the trouble of looking it up this very moment, but I think it's something along the lines of a group of Jedi broke apart. They start causing problems for the galaxy and for the Jedi. They bring them down. They make a base on some planet. And I forget if the planet was already like completely covered by metal already, or if it happens after the conflict, but something happens to this world where it's completely enshrouded in this case of metal around it. Needless to say, the Third Great Schism ends with the ones who broke apart utterly failing. Who didn't see that coming? I mean, it's quite easy to see where that's going. The Fourth Great Schism deals with Darth Ruin, as he now calls himself, the Darth title having been picked up a while ago. I'll talk about that when I get there. Darth Ruin, that's a cool title, cool name. Good decision there, I'd say. And it's really hard to kind of come up with Sith names after a while. You can cut off words that are slightly menacing, like Vader, Invader, Sidious, Insidious. Plagueis is just sort of a twist on the word plague. Darth Revan and Malak are the most just, why do they have those names tight? Them and Crate really just kind of chose names out of the backsides. Everyone else tried to be a little tacky, where it's like, oh, I'm going to be Darth Vengeance or Darth Barris or, Darth some word that kind of sounds similar to a word that's evil sounding or dark sounding along those lines, along that same thought pattern. Ruin, really good. Really simple. Just take the whole word and say, screw it, I'm going to be Darth Ruin because I want to freaking ruin everything. Which he does. He ruins another small general peace that seems to have ensued following Vitiat's collapse. I don't know exactly when, but it seems like it could have possibly been like another 1,000-year peace, but I don't know. There's not this period between Vitiat, the new Sith Wars, and then what follows before the Ruusan conflict. As much history as there is there, it's actually very little to none, and it's very underdeveloped. And honestly, some of the concepts and things I've seen comic books and books come and create in that time frame look ridiculous. I mean, Farfalla, the Jedi who helped Hoth in the Ruusan attacks, they literally in the comic book give him a battleship that looks like a ship from the frickin' 1700s. It looks like a wooden boat, but in space. I don't know what the hell happened where people just go all out with this weird fantasy sci-fi mix, but this period distinctly feels very un-Star Wars like in very specific regions, although when they start to get into Bane, it gets a lot better. It starts to feel like Star Wars again. I don't know what the hell was going on where people were just like, oh, let's go here and try that. Oh, let's try that. No, let's do it. After the Ruin story, things just start to get weird, but it doesn't, ruin the universe or anything. It's just weird. I keep getting sidetracked, and I apologize. So this video's going to be as long, or if not longer, than the friggin' Nagaseta Out one. Not Exar Kun long, that's for sure. Darth Ruin, with his new Jedi converts and his clans, now turned into a new empire, a new army, begins the new Sith Wars against the Republic and the Jedi. Okay, the new Sith Wars, I don't mind. It's like an era type thing, like the old Sith Wars were the amalgamation of several big wars, kind of like how the Great Sith War is an amalgamation of many conflicts. The old Sith Wars were the Great Sith War, once again, Mandalorian Wars, Jedi Civil War, the First Purge. I actually, now that I think about it, I don't think the Great Wars are actually considered part of the old Sith Wars, although by definition they should be. And so the new Sith Wars is essentially the same thing, but again, new Sith Wars are really, there's a lot. I guess that's why they call it the Dark Ages for the Republic, because we're told that these wars go from one to the next, and essentially 1,000 years of conflict reign, and it just drains the Republic. It just drains them, beats them. Things get so bad that the Jedi ironically do what Palpatine uses as propaganda to take over. The Jedi take over the Republic to keep it from falling into chaos and into the Sith hands. Maybe not so forcibly, but maybe they kind of come off as being necessary to make sure the Republic doesn't fall apart, but they do. They take over, and there are several Jedi Chancellors. After the Ruusan reformations, after the last Battle of Rusan, they kind of hand power back over to just regular people. But I think, again, in universe, not exactly with the movies, because the movies are in universe of their own, but if you want to go deep in universe, you could say that this maybe helps lead to some psychological inclinations for people during the Clone Wars, where they're thinking things aren't that bad, but they do have paranoia, because again, the Jedi always come out as being arrogant pricks, or at least as what people want to make them out to be. I tend to think that the old order at least is very much misjudged. But again, maybe there's some psychological trauma. I don't know. It's an interesting concept, needless to say. I believe they're talking about Darth Ruin in there. There's not a lot to say about him. I wish there was a lot more said about him. I wish his story was delved into a lot more. I wish we got more out of what he was, because apparently, too, just to end things off here, he was killed by his own followers because they hated him so much, because his ways of teaching, his single-mindedness, his ambitions, and just the way he apparently just went total all-out dick. They hated him so much they all just got together, killed him, and the whole empire fell apart immediately, broke into warring nations, clans, and whatnot, and all of them fighting the Republic at once. So it turns into the Dark Ages, where there's just conflicts here, there, everywhere. Every Sith Lord, you get a piece of space, you get a piece of space, you get a kingdom, it's ridiculous. And wars after war, the Sictus Wars. Oh, God, there's other ones mingled in there. The Brotherhood of Darkness conflict. Khan brings the Empire most together. But again, it's like, several years before the frickin' Republic beat him on Rusan, and the whole thing comes crashing down anyway, so it was a little bit for nothing. But Ruin began it all. He began a snowball effect. Once again, reinvigorated the whole conflict that's gone back now for several thousand years. I tend to have a category of Sith Lords who I consider progenitors, so to speak, precursors to Anakin Skywalker, and he fits the mold just in the fact that he was one of the greater Jedi, and inexplicably, because we don't know the whole story, just fell, took Jedi with him, and began wars, began killing, became a royal dick. And, the wars last for 1,000 years. And eventually he and all of his retarded followers, I mean, excuse my usage of that word, but good lord, New Sith Wars are just an amalgamation of weirdness after weirdness until we finally get into the Khan phase, and then things get a lot better with Bane. And, you could say Bane is a direct result of Ruin going through the process of starting the Empire up again. That is very much true, but of course Bane takes all of his influence from Revan. Yeah, pretty much all from Revan. Even though he, again, even on Wikipedia, they do acknowledge that he does not exactly follow the same mold Revan did when he was a Sith. The whole rule of two is actually more or less Revan saying, never train more than one apprentice, but don't limit the size of the order itself. You have one apprentice, but that doesn't mean that you're the only master in the order. But I think Bane, we're meant to believe Bane knows this, but he decides that this is a lot better than having other ones competing with you all the time. Which, maybe. I tend to believe that if you're going to fight an order as big as the Jedi, you might as well have more out there. But, Sidious teaches us otherwise. He brought him down just on his own lonesome. Well, unless you consider Maul and Tyrannus to have been that great of helps, but, Maul got the ball rolling, Tyrannus was the lackey, so I think Sidious can be given 99.9% of the credit. But again, things go back to Ruin. Ruin is interesting because there's just not a lot known about him. If there's more known about him, maybe he wouldn't be as interesting, but the mystery that surrounds his life and what he did, how he did it, that's what makes him interesting. His new picture is also really freaking menacing too. The old one where he's just kind of looking to the side, I'm sure I'll put it up. He's screaming, flinging his red lightsaber back. He looks just kind of ridiculous. The one now that's up where he's got that like almost kind of chest blue skin, but not exactly. Those beady yellow eyes and those metal things on his face and the cloak over his head. That now, if I saw him leading people, that would probably scare me a little bit. But you know, we don't know much about his powers. We don't know what form of saber battle he used. His twist on the Sith code is interesting. I might sound like a total douchebag if I say it myself. You know what? I'll put it on the video and I'll leave it out there for a little while. I'll put it up like right now. And this is his creed. It's a twist on both. It's a twist on both the Jedi and Sith mantras, which is interesting. I think he was trying to make something his own, but you know, again, his solipsisms, his ambition, the way he treated people apparently after he fell, really turned people so against him that they decided to kill him really quickly, apparently. Well, they say quickly, it could have been years. But shoot, if this one Umbaran really could cause that much damage, I can't imagine that there were more Umbaran Sith, but the Umbarans are really that greatly developed a species in Star Wars as a whole. And then following Ruin, I'm not going to get into this, but following Ruin, we get the Dark Underlord. There's so many things wrong with the Dark Underlord, I can't even get into what the heck they were thinking when they created this thing. But again, for as where Darth Ruin stands, he's interesting only because we don't know a lot about him. If we knew more about him, maybe he wouldn't be as interesting, but I would like to know more about him. It's likely not going to happen now because of Disney. So, you know, he'll always remain mysterious, and, you know, that says something towards his longevity as a Sith of renown. And, you know, historically, he's a very important, very relevant for Legends canon. And I think if more was done for him, we would have a really interesting, not tragic, but maybe just, you know, just straight up villain for once, kind of like Sidious, in the fact that you're not meant to exactly feel for this character and that you understand why they're doing what they're doing. Because Sidious never comes off that way to me. He always comes off as a villain that's just, he's evil because frankly he enjoys it. And you know what? We should enjoy villains a little more who enjoy what they're doing, because I'm getting tired of us always having to feel bad for the bad guy. Oh, he's a mass murderer, but oh man, his early life, you know, that's fine and all, but let's not make every single villain out to be a misunderstood, lost puppy, okay? Let's show some of them to be the dicks that they are, and I think Ruin kind of fits that mold. I think Sidious fits the mold. I even think Exar Kun probably fits the mold, even though he does have a little more character depth to him. Sadao fits the mold. You know, you don't really feel bad for a lot of Sith Lords, really, at the end. I mean, I'm not going to get into that right now, but nonetheless. Ruin, it's obvious why he disappoints me, so I'm not going to really talk about it. Just, you know, not a lot known about him, so there's not a lot to say. So yeah, Darth Ruin. I hardly know what you did, who you are, how you did it, but Lord knows, I wish I did. I wish I knew more. So yeah, that's this one. Shorter than the last one, that's for sure. Longer than the first one. Hope you guys enjoy. Again, comment, rate, subscribe, do all the good stuff other YouTube people say. And, you know, until the next one.